Let's bring in right now Democratic Congressman Ruben Gay of Arizona. He's a member of the House Armed Services Committee, a Marine combat veteran. And as of yesterday, a candidate for the U.S. Senate. I'm just wondering, you serve in the House of... yeah, that's a lot to follow up on. But, I served in the House, and I will say that if you'd taken just one of those things that we listed there, our leadership on the other side would have come together, had a meeting 5 minutes later, would have taken that person off of every committee, and they would have been an outcast until they quit Congress.
Oh yeah, Pelosi would have taken my office and put it on the street on Constitution Avenue. If I had done any of that.
How much things have changed? I mean, so what's it like working in a Congress where this is one of the most influential, powerful people in Congress?
Well, number one, it's scary. Number two, she may have influence, but she doesn't have respect. And the only respect she probably gets is from Kevin McCarthy. And if you have that man's respect, it's a pretty empty check. So, I go to serve the people of Arizona. I get to do that every day. I get to do it with honor, and I don't have to suck up to people like Marjorie Taylor Greene to do it. I'm proud to be able to do it that way.
So, Congressman, we'll get to your future political plans in a moment, but let's start staying here in this Congress. I mean, it's Marjorie Taylor Greene, but it's also a lot of others, sort of in the radical parts of the Republican Party, who have been given a lot of power in this new Congress and are talking about some pretty consequential things, potentially, as noted, cutting funds to Ukraine, also playing real political games with the debt ceiling, which so many have warned would lead to potential fiscal calamity. How do you work? How do you do deals? How do you connect with the other side of the aisle when they're like that?
Well, it depends on the issue. Look, on Ukraine, we can talk about different funding levels. We can talk about checks and balances. I think there's a lot already. I've been very involved in the Ukraine war funding. When it comes to the debt limit, there is no negotiation. And we have to be very clear, because the worst thing that we could have is miscalculation, where the other side thinks we're going to blink. We're not going to cut Medicare. We're not going to cut Social Security. We're not going to cut future Social Security. We're not going to cut future Medicare. This is a debt that we have promised that we are going to fulfill. 25% of it was from the Trump tax cuts. And we're certainly not going to use this opportunity to go and cut, for example, SNAP benefits that for the poorest people to reinforce and pay for the Trump tax cuts for some of the richest Americans. And I think it's very important that our leadership, Democrats, Republicans, really communicates, especially to the extreme, that this kind of gamesmanship is not going to work. Not only that, it's going to end up backfiring. We will end up having a bigger deficit if we default. We're going to have 401ks. We're hearing estimates about 25%, losses on that. It's probably going to put us into a small recession. These are the type of games that we don't want to play, and at the end of the day, ends up hurting Americans. And another point: if you're one of the 18 Republicans right now that are serving in districts that Biden won, do you really want to be put on the sacrificial stone by the Matt Gaetz, the Marjorie Taylor Greenes of the world, the Lauren Boeberts of the world? You really want to sacrifice your political career for the trifecta of dumbness over there? I wouldn't.
It's interesting. Chuck Schumer had said, Republicans, if they want to do all these cuts, they ought to show us the plans.
Put it up.
Put the budget on the table. One of the reasons I ran for Congress was, well, I'm a dork. I was watching C-SPAN, and I saw Tim Penny and John Kasich, and they actually went to the floor. They didn't like Bill Clinton's budget in 1993. So a Democrat and a Republican went to the floor and said, we don't like the budget. This is a budget we would put on the floor. And they laid it all out. And I said, my God, these people, they've got integrity, they've got ideas, they've got plans, and it's why I decided to run. Well, why don't Republicans do that now? I mean, if they're going to cut Medicare, which, Rick Scott's promised to cut Medicare, he's promised to cut Medicaid, he's promised to cut Social Security, he promised to raise taxes on poor Americans. Why don't they put that on the floor and vote on it?
Well, because the Republican Party still believes that they're a party of policy, not a party of grievances. But really, they're largely a party of grievances. And if you see that, that's why there's always something they're supposed to be mad at, whether it's CRT or something that they found in the library, or maybe it's some other, buzzword of the week. But in fact, if they actually go after Social Security, if they go after Medicare, there is a lot of people within their coalition that will start walking away. And so they could only go so far, because once they actually catch the car, they don't know what to do with the bumper.
So you just mentioned, Congressman, that there are 18 Republican members of Congress whose district was carried by Joe Biden. on things like cuts in Medicare, cuts in Social Security. Two-part question. How convinced are you that you can get within their slim majority, 5, 6, or 7 of the 18 to go along with the Democrats' position on legislation? And do you have any feel at all for the fear factor within the Republican Party among people like the 18, that they will just get crushed by the right wing of their party, which is the majority of their party?
I have noticed, though, to give credit to the 18 Republicans, they do have a certain level of independence. And many of them are brand new. And I think they are willing to push back against the extreme of the Republican Party on some things. I think the Dettleman may be one of them. At first, they're going to try to play along because, they want to be team players, I guess, with their colleagues. But I warn them that at some point, they're going to have to be very clear with them. The way that we have to think about this, this debt limit is not a Democratic debt limit bill. It's not a Republican debt limit bill. It is an American responsibility for us to pay our bills. And at the end of the day, if we have to do it, we'll just use a discharge petition. Get 5 Republicans to come over and just put this to the floor and call it a victory for the American public. And don't try to make this a political situation where we basically stab each other and hope someone ends up winning. Because the worst thing that could happen is, again, miscalculation starts war. Miscalculations like this could create an economic scenario where we basically trigger a meltdown of the financial markets because we were all playing games.
Congressman, we all saw for years how Nancy Pelosi led the Democratic caucus as Speaker.
Yeah, trust me, I felt it.
Yeah, I know. I bet you did. I felt it way across town. I felt that. So is there any indication of how or whether Speaker McCarthy is going to be able to have a functional Congress, to have a functional majority that actually gets things done? Do you see any movement toward that end?
I don't see it because I think he has weakened the institution of the speakership to the point where it's only in name. Kevin McCarthy only wanted the title of Speaker. He didn't want the responsibility, he didn't want the accountability that comes with it. That's why he was willing to sell himself to the lowest bidder, and you don't get any lower than Matt Gaetz and Lauren Boebert. And now he's going to have to end up figuring out how to compromise his way through the debt limit, through budgets, through simple bills. He put people on the Rules Committee that could easily bottle up almost any legislation just because he wanted to make sure he holds the title. And again, but he's not going to be able to actually move legislation. So it's not the same. And look, I at one point did not support Speaker Pelosi for her reelection as Speaker. And we sat down, me and a couple other Democrats, and we worked out a deal. But in no point did we ever diminish the power of the speakership. And in no point did we set up landmines to blow up the Democratic caucus in order for us to get some level of accountability from leadership. What happened in the Republican Party is they essentially set up so many landmines that, Speaker McCarthy is going to have to be tiptoeing around for the next 2 years. And I don't think he's actually going to make it 2 years, to be honest.
Congressman, can we broaden this out to your race for the Senate in Arizona? Obviously, there are Democrats who are afraid that you throwing your hat in the ring might tip the race to a Republican, presumably Kari Lake if she decides to run. I know there was something like 30,000 Republican voters in Arizona who chose to back Katie Hobbs over Kari Lake, who switched parties, and there's been great research done on that. Are you kind of banking on the fact that those same Republicans who didn't like Kari Lake in the gubernatorial race would turn around and say, we don't like her again for the Senate either? Are you worried that you may be taking a seat away from Democrats by throwing your hat in the ring there?
No, I know for sure that I'm preserving this seat. Kyrsten Sinema can't win a race in Arizona. Right now, she's in third place in every polling. She's alienated Democrats, Republicans, and independents. They just don't trust her, and that trust is not going to get rebuilt no matter who she's running against, whether it's Kari Lake or whatever the Republican Party puts up against us. And I'm not planning to run against Kari Lake. I'm planning to run on my agenda, talking about the American dream, talking about Arizona and the needs of Arizonans that are not being met right now by Kyrsten Sinema, and certainly are not going to be met by whoever the Republican Party nominates. And so at the end of the day, do we hope to get those 30,000 Republicans? Absolutely. But I also hope to get lots of other Republicans, lots of other independents, and get a lot of Democrats that have just been dissuaded from voting for many years to actually come out and vote and again, put the same winning ticket together that got us a win in 2018, 2020, and 2022.
Congressman Ruben Gallego of Arizona, now a candidate for U.S. Senate. Thank you very much for being on the show this morning. We appreciate it.
Thank you.